The question we're trying to answer today is whether or not pasta is healthy and can it still be eaten during a diet? The first thing we need to talk about is portioning. Pasta can still be part of a really healthy diet. You just need to make sure that you're not over consuming it, just like any carb, just like any protein, just like any fat. So this is dry. So to convert that to cooked, you have to times it by 2.4. So what I'm looking for here is anywhere from 90 to 100. That gives me about 216 grams of cooked pasta. So this would be one portion for one person. Why am I showing you this? Because it's really important that you know the amount of carbs that you're consuming. In the past, a lot of people have demonized fat, and then all of a sudden it switched teams and everyone started demonizing carbs. But the thing with carbohydrates like rice or grains or pasta, especially when you're working with refined carbohydrates, is that you do tend to get full very quickly, but you tend to get really hungry just as fast right after. So my tip for you is really important that you add other ingredients to fill yourself up, and that's where proteins and vegetables come into play. I'll be working with IDEAL Gourmet Pastas today. They have a lot of different varieties that always give you a really consistent product. And today we're gonna be using their flat pasta shapes. So I have some linguine and I have some fettuccine. I feel like these are just nice options if you love a spaghetti. And when I look at a pasta dish, I want it to look complete and full. And I feel like when I have long strands of pasta, it just makes the dish look more complete. 100% mental, but the mental factor plays a huge role in how much you actually eat. Because when you see a plate that doesn't look full, automatically you're thinking, oh, I'm still gonna be hungry after this. But when you look at a plate that looks nice and full, you know you're gonna have a really good meal and that you will be satisfied. The 3 recipes I'll be showing you today, the first 2 use the IDEAL Gourmet linguine. I'll be making a mushroom spinach bake, and then I'll be making pasta fresca, nice and fresh, nice and light. And then finally, we're gonna finish up with the fettuccine noodles and pairing that with a lower cal version of a beef stroganoff that I think you're gonna love. So I'm gonna show you how to make a really quick spinach pasta bake, and we're gonna try as much as possible to keep it nice and healthy for you. The first thing we're gonna do is chop up some garlic, and we're gonna cook down our 2 main vegetables, which are mushrooms and spinach. Once you have some nice browning on your mushrooms, we're then gonna add some garlic. Just toast that together, really bring out those fragrance. When that's finished, clean out the pan. We're gonna toss in our spinach, wait for that to wilt. Then we're gonna draw up as much moisture from it as possible. Then you can actually combine your mushrooms and spinach and set that aside. So you want all that oil from the garlic and the onions to kind of mix nicely with the spinach. If you're used to eating mainly spaghetti, linguine is a nice kind of evolution into flatter pastas. I honestly prefer them just because I like that wider space that has more opportunity to get together with the sauce and be lathered in that sauce. So I'm using the IDEAL Gourmet linguine today, which is gonna be perfect because it's actually made from durum wheat semolina, which means that it actually will keep its toothiness a bit longer. So here we're doing 2 processes of cooking, boiling it in some salted water, obviously for flavor, and then that goes into the oven. So basically you're cooking it almost twice. So any other pasta would kind of fall apart. But here, if we respect the right time, and because of the ingredients used, you should have something that keeps its texture that we love so much. I think the linguine here tells us to cook it for 10 to 12 minutes. So what we did is we cooked it for 8 minutes, so slightly under. So that way we don't overcook it in the oven, so that you get something that if you were to eat it now, it might be a little too crunchy still, but once you put it in the oven, it'll be absolutely perfect. Get a pot out, medium heat. We're gonna go ahead and melt some butter first. To that, we're gonna add some flour, make a quick little roux, which will be our thickener for our water, which will help thicken everything. To that, to make it creamy, we'll add some Greek yogurt, and then to make it cheesy, add a little bit of parmesan and some mozzarella. So it's kind of like a fake, healthier cheese sauce. Not really fake because there's actually cheese, but usually you'd do this with milk or cream to get it extra creamy. You wouldn't be using yogurt, but it's all about kind of like balances and making little sacrifices here and there for your health. and it tastes like you have a lot of cheese, but it really is that yogurt that carries all that flavor. Now, all we have to do is assemble. We're gonna add our mushroom and our spinach to our pasta. Toss that all together. Add some of our cheese sauce. Put that in your baking dish. Top off with the rest of the cheese sauce. Spread that as evenly as you can. And then top this off with as much or as little mozzarella as you want. This goes into the oven until that whole top is nice and melted, but also we're just looking to kind of solidify the mass a little bit more together. Pasta's ready. Take it out. It should be beautiful. It should still be bubbling. If you're being really picky about it, you'll want to let this rest for kind of a couple of minutes to make sure that when you cut into it, it doesn't go all over the place. So this sat here for maybe 10 minutes while we were doing the beauty shots. So you'll see that it actually solidified nicely because that's what happens when you actually wait. So if I cut a piece now, you'll see that it comes out really clean. And when you rest it, you also give the time for that cheese to give you more of a stretch. So see, you've got a nice kind of like clean slice here. So when you don't wait, it flattens out a little bit. When you wait, it pops up nicely. But it tastes exactly the same, guys. If you want those cheese pulls like that, those threads that are so important for Instagram, then you need to wait. So it feels and looks really decadent and creamy. And it tastes really decadent. I mean, the only thing that gives away the yogurt is that slight tang flavor right at the end. But aside from that, like this for me tastes like something that has tons of cream in it. We're gonna be doing like a pasta fresca, which is kind of like a salad, but you have to use warm pasta noodles to which we're gonna add some cherry tomatoes, some herbs, some capers, some olives. Really just beautiful fresh flavors. And for that added protein, we're gonna have a little bit of chicken breast, and you can add some cheese if you want to optionally. Very simple chicken breast, just one large piece. I believe this is about 180 to 220 grams. It does have a kind of like weird uneven shape. So we're just gonna cut through it and then we're gonna bang it a couple of times with a mallet to help flatten it out so it'll cook evenly and quickly. Season that with some salt, some pepper. The vegetables we're gonna use in our pasta, very typical in a Mediterranean diet, which is one of my favorite and healthiest diets. So we're using some cherry tomatoes, some flat leaf parsley, some garlic, and then we're gonna be using some black olives as well. Some capers, brininess, it just gives you a lot of flavor, and some red wine vinegar, and that's just how I like to do it. You can add other stuff if you want in there too. Now we're cooking the chicken breast. All we're looking for is really color because this is gonna cook really quickly. We're gonna flip it once we have some brown crusting on one side and then kind of cook it for an additional 2 minutes. So cooking time in terms of this chicken breast will probably take around 4 to 5 minutes max, which is really fast. And then after cooking it, make sure you rest it for about 5 minutes. We're using the IDEAL Gourmet Linguine for this recipe as well. You could use the fettuccine, you could use spaghetti, you could use 2 pastas. It really depends on you. I just think the linguine is gonna work really well. So I took it out of the water, strained it, because we don't need the starchy water to build a sauce. And we're just letting that cool just a tad bit. To loosen up the pasta a little bit, just put some extra virgin olive oil. Obviously use the best quality extra virgin olive oil because it does impart a lot of flavor to the dish. Then we're gonna go ahead and just add in our tomato mix. Like that already to me just looks absolutely beautiful. Chop up the chicken breast once it's done, and that's good to go. Let's try our pasta fresca. At the end of the day, it's still a pasta dish, so it's still really kind of hefty, but it feels light because of the dressing. I feel like the macaroni salad with like mayonnaise and stuff, that's weirder. This tastes really good. If we're looking for a high fat, high protein dish with a good amount of carbs, this is the one for you. I'm gonna show you how to make a cheap beef stroganoff. It's like a lighter, low-cal version of a beef stroganoff. And we're gonna be putting that on top some IDEAL Gourmet fettuccine. These are the widest and the flattest of all the flat pastas that they have. And I love wide pasta because it really does cling to the sauce nicely. And I think this is the perfect dish for this type of pasta. First thing we're gonna do is grab our plug Bolzico beef strip loin. If we're gonna eat beef and we wanna be healthy, we want to eat grass-fed beef. It is absolutely the best for you. If you just took it out of the pack just like I did, make sure to always just pat it dry. Really important. It just gives you more of a crust when you cook your steak. So this has been chilling kind of like at room temp for a while, which is really important as well so that you get a nice kind of cook throughout. Bit of salt. You can do this in the pan as well. I'll just do it ahead. It'll just help dry out that skin a little bit more. Okay, that chills on the side. Next for sauce, very simple, onion. And then we're gonna be slicing up some garlic. And then we're just gonna be cooking everything in batches with some mushrooms as well, getting color on everything, including the beef, until we get to a point where all our ingredients individually look absolutely delicious and perfect. Then we're gonna build the sauce and put everything together. Once your strip loin is perfectly cooked on all sides, you want to make sure to rest that for at least 5 to 10 minutes. Don't worry about it being cold. We're adding that back into the sauce later. We're gonna grab our IDEAL Gourmet fettuccine. This is gonna cook for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna try it at 9 minutes just to see if it's where I like it to be. Same thing, boiling water, nice and seasoned with salt. For the sauce, really simple. You want to keep that pan that has all those burnt bits and flavor because that's just going to be really intense and delicious. We're going to melt down some butter there and then make a really quick roux with some flour. You then slowly pour in your beef broth here just to kind of thicken everything up and then toss in your vegetables back in. And then you'll have something that looks like this. The sauce is nice and thick. So I lived in Russia for a while and they would add smetana or mayonnaise right before finishing the dish. Smetana is sour cream. Here we're not gonna do that because we don't want to basically add more calories or more fat than we need for this particular dish. So you can add like a tablespoon of Greek yogurt if you want at the last minute and then kind of just bring that together with your steak. Our pasta is now ready. You don't really need the starch here. So once this is perfectly cooked, we're just gonna go ahead and strain it until it's nice and dry because we're just gonna be placing this naked and then topping it with the sauce. It's funny how this looks absolutely like an elevated version of beef stroganoff, and it looks absolutely decadent, but we know it's actually healthier for you, which is pretty cool. So pasta and sauce first. That's beautiful. I would not be able to tell that there is no cream, there is no sour cream, there is no mayonnaise in there. I think just the richness of the beef broth and the butter is enough to make this dish feel creamy. Or cheese, I didn't add any cheese to this. And the beef, because we cooked it separately, you might think, oh, Erwan, these are massive chunks of steak. But when you have tender beef in chunks, properly cooked, you should be able to bite through it really easily. So if you're starting a diet or you're trying to be healthy this year, instead of stopping yourself from eating everything that you love, look at the things that you love and figure out how to make them better for you. At the end of the day, happiness and mental stability are really important parts of sustainable fat loss and healthy eating. Hope that helped you. Peace out.